Thanks, Mark. And thank you all for being here this morning. It's a pleasure for me to be here with Polly and AJ. I've been an admirer of their work and read The Shadowcatcher. It's great. I highly recommend it. And am making my way through The Hunt for Man Sing. And it's fascinating, particularly in light of current developments in immigration policy and at the border in particular. Just a couple of days ago, DHS Secretary Johnson released the 2016 statistics on apprehensions of illegal arrivals at the border and reported a significant uptick in 2016 over the previous year. They apprehended just over 400,000 illegal aliens. The largest growth was in the category of new family arrivals, most of whom are making an asylum claim. And this is a concern. I have, in the last 6 months or so, in the spring in particular, had the occasion to visit ports of entry, legal ports of entry along the border in Texas and in California. And in briefings there by CBP, was told that their biggest concern at the time, one of their biggest issues that they were dealing with, was this phenomenon of large numbers of people arriving at the border seeking asylum. And the Border Patrol is reporting this as well, that a large number of the people that they are apprehending, unlike times in the past, are asking to stay based on a fear of return home. If you read the statements from DHS and certainly from many of the advocacy groups working on immigration, the impression you get is that this phenomenon of more people arriving at the border seeking asylum is kind of a spontaneous phenomenon, more or less a random phenomenon that's occurring because of events in these migrants' home countries that are driving them here, that they are fleeing oppression, when in fact, this is not a random or spontaneous phenomenon at all. It is an organized process that is happening, facilitated in large part by criminal smuggling organizations, and in particular, the policies that our government has that enable people who reach our borders to succeed in being able to stay here for some indefinite period of time under the guise of seeking asylum. This map very nicely illustrates the process that people coming from non-contiguous countries, as they're known, in other words, countries other than Canada and Mexico, are going through to reach the United States. And if you look at the map, you see this is referring to the Haitians, which is one of the most recent groups of people who are coming in large numbers. Haiti, of course, is up here, but they're traveling this route to enter in Tijuana. I noticed this recently in immigration court as well when I was sitting on the day where a lot of Haitian asylum applicants were having their hearings. I was sitting in Boston, but almost all of them had arrived in San Diego through the San Isidro port of entry, which is opposite Tijuana. So this is a long route, which I'm told by my co-panelists actually can take at least 6 months, maybe up to a year and a half for these folks to make their way through from starting. Some of them had been living in Brazil since the earthquake, to make their way all through this multi-step travel, which they can't do on their own. They are paying criminal smuggling organizations to do it until they end up in Tijuana. Different nationalities appear at different ports of entry. And again, it's not random. There are patterns involved here. The Central Americans largely go through the Rio Grande Valley. The Indians who are coming usually go through Arizona. Eritreans go through a different port of entry, all according to the smuggling organization that they're working for, that they're paying that the coyotes are working for. So it's not an organic process at all. The result has been a huge explosion in the number of so-called credible fear claims that people are making to Border Patrol agents when they're apprehended, and also at the ports of entry. A claim of fearing return to your homeland is the first step in the asylum process. And you can see these are numbers taken from USCIS's workload statistics that I collected off of their website and through some other sources. They're not published normally in one spot. But you can see the huge explosion that's taken place in the number of asylum applications, starting at about 2009 and continuing to today. There's no real coincidence that the increase began in 2009 because in December 2009, an executive action was taken by the Obama administration that changed significantly the way asylum seekers were being handled when encountered either by the Border Patrol or at the port of entry. Rather than being kept in custody while their applications are reviewed, instead, a memorandum was issued telling ICE that they were to be granted parole or allowed to enter the country and await the review of their asylum application. Basically, a fancy way of saying a catch and release policy. As word has gotten around that if you come and make an asylum claim that you will be released, I think that has a lot to do with why the numbers have gone up. Most of them, as I said, are being processed at the southwest border, being handled by the Houston Asylum Office, with a smaller number being handled by the Los Angeles Asylum Office, which covers California and Arizona. Houston covers New Mexico and Texas. And you see the Newark office actually covers also LaGuardia and Kennedy Airport in particular, where a lot of international asylum claims claimants will come through. But you can see this is largely a phenomenon that's happening in Texas. And here you have the nationalities of the people that are making the asylum claims, with El Salvador being the #1 citizenship of the people who are making the claims. Interestingly, in 2015, India became the 5th largest source of asylum applicants, displacing Ecuador, which has long had a tradition of sending people here illegally, or people arriving from there illegally. And this chart, I think, gives us a sense of the disconnect between what the law provides for in terms of people gaining admission and permanent residence in the United States and the way these cases are handled. What I did was I took the number of new credible fear applications that have been received since October 2014 and going through partway this year. We see tens of thousands of people making asylum applications. The column on the right, it shows the results of those cases that were decided in 2015 for people of those same nationalities. And as it turns out, while a lot of people are getting let in to make an asylum application, very few of them are actually being approved once their case is fully reviewed. So we're letting in large numbers of people to pursue these applications, even though they have a very small chance of actually qualifying for asylum, which leads to questions about, is the policy that we have appropriate? And again, this when you consider how this issue has been presented to the public as something that is sort of out of our control and that we have international obligations to accept these individuals, in fact, under the law and under international agreements, we do have options that we can take as far as how we handle these cases. And as Polly and AJ will discuss, there are things that we can do from a law enforcement approach as well, that this is not a force of nature that we as a country simply have to manage. It is something that our policies have a lot to do with encouraging, and through policy changes, we could do something about this. There definitely are impacts of this influx of asylum seekers. In San Diego, the city government there is concerned that, unlike past waves of asylum seekers, the Haitians who are coming through that particular port of entry are not necessarily moving on to other parts of the United States like they used to. They're sticking around in San Diego, and this is creating a little bit more attention from authorities there, and more calls for action. We understand from some of the press reports coming out of Latin America that there have been about more than 11,000 Haitians who have transited Mexico and been issued a transit permit by the government of Mexico to wait their turn to seek asylum at the U.S. border. And that, again, gives you a sense of how this is building up, and we may have, we don't really have the latest numbers to show how many people are being admitted, but there's reason to believe, based on the numbers coming out of Mexico, that there's been a huge increase in the number of Haitians who are coming. And I was just showing the tape before we started of the people. That was a videotape that was provided by Duncan Hunter, Representative Duncan Hunter's office, showing the numbers of Haitians lining up at the office in Mexico to wait their turn to cross into the United States. So it is quite an organized process. Some people have asked, well, why do they start in South America? Why Ecuador in particular? And the gentleman at the center of the smuggling organization featured in this book says the answer is easy. You don't need a visa to get into Ecuador. That's why they start there, and that's why the journey begins there rather than the shorter journey from Haiti by boat to Florida, which many people associate with Haitian migration. And of course, the other half of the answer is they can get in Tijuana. They may be stopped by the Coast Guard if they try to go by boat to Florida. So, and again, they're coming because our policy allows them, rewards them with the ability to stay here.